cents, right? If I use that power here, then I avoid 15 cents a cost. So the benefit to siting the solar array where we have our biggest power user in town is if we're gonna sell power from this array to the fire station, which is what the model suggests, to generate revenue for the low and moderate income assistance. And the town is currently paying, let's say, 15 cents per kilowatt hour total for the power and all the pieces on top of it. And I use power that I'm generating there, then for every kilowatt hour that I generate, I save 15 cents. We can buy that power from the solar array at 15 cents or 14.5 cents, and all of that money is available to go into the fund for utility assistance. If I site that where I'm not using it, I'm just putting it out into the grid, the most I'm gonna get is what the co-op's gonna pay me for the power, which is about half that much. So the benefit to having it where I can use it behind the meter before it ever hits the distribution system is it's worth somewhere in the neighborhood of twice as much. That's why siting it at the firehouse works best. I mean, if the objective here is to generate the revenue to help low and moderate income folks with their utilities, the more revenue we can generate, the better. And you generate more revenue when you use the power than when you sell it to the co-op. So that's the why as to putting it where we're using it rather than at the transfer station. Transfer station does use some electricity, but it's only the third largest user in town. Second largest user is right here at the town offices. So that's the rationale for siting the array where you're actually using the power. Because I agree with you, putting an array up at the transfer station where you have a huge expanse of uninterrupted land that you can put it on, and you can do all kinds of things to tailor it for maximum benefit. We just don't have a big power user up there, and so it would generate considerably less revenue for the utility assistance.
Well, it gives something for the public to view on their
Absolutely.
YouTubes. And please contact us.
Yep.
Input.
All right. We ready to take a vote on this?
Yeah.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
Nice job, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. And as I said, this is a step. There's a lot of pieces in this whole thing that we're just figuring out. So input from minds smarter than mine is most welcome.
Well, you worked on the project with Lakes Region, the consortium, which seems to be saving us a few bucks every year, so.
Yep, it is.
You have a working knowledge.
And we're working on a follow-on to that, as you know. All right, so I think that's the end of our signature file. What's next? Okay, Selectmen's update. Chip?
Yeah, I went to, if I can find it, a meeting in Tamworth last week for the,
Like substance abuse task forces.
Substance abuse prevention and continuum of care work group. And it was really informative. A couple of takeaways from it. It seemed to be predominantly populated by law enforcement, which as well as members of the service community. So White Horse was there.
Yep.
And so we're getting some feedback as far as services provided, what direction they're going in with White Horse. The fact that the Mountain View over in Effingham has turned into a substance abuse clinic, but pricey one, so it's not really available to just the average Joe. Found out all about fentanyl. I'm totally off fentanyl now, I'm just not going to use it. But I guess part of the, and I never realized that it was the accumulation. I mean, if you were to use heroin, which I'm not suggesting anyone do, it's in and out of your system in 24 hours, whereas the fentanyl will build up.
Yes.
And so that's where the overdose problems happen, or part of the reason why they happen. They're going to have ongoing meetings. I think they did a good job of coordinating efforts. I brought some stuff back for the chief of police on LEAD, which is taking the place of the DARE program, or has taken the place of it. But I think there has to be some public awareness at the educational level as well, and there's some efforts going that way, the various police departments. And I get to put my 2 cents worth in about mental health. And the only way you can get mental health services in Carroll County is to get arrested. So people end up in the back of a cruiser going to the jail in order to get some sort of mental health assistance. And it's just a shame. And I think the same thing is happening with the drug problems. It's
The entry system is
the
either
only way
through
to get
fire
in
or
is
police.
through criminal justice, which I think
Yes.
is pretty sad.
Yep. Well, it's sad on more than one level, and beyond getting them into a system that doesn't really help them, the output from that system, I don't think puts them on a path toward addressing the
Right. And
the concern, the issue, the need.
a lot of the actual resources only kick in when you're convicted and you're sentenced to more than 6 months. And at that point, late act assistance and a lot of other programming kicks in. But I don't know what the statistics are now, but it was up to 6 months that you had people sitting there waiting for trial. So that your prime opportunity, the first 24, 48 hours of incarceration are long gone before any
Yes.
resources kick in. But that's a legislative.
But you came away pleased with their efforts and
Yeah, I mean, I think we're doing as well as we can, given the resources that we have. But it's nice to see that there are some people out there in the different communities.
wasn't it nice that for the second year in a row, our community supported these programs in theory and money?
Mhm.
Right, and it's unfortunate that there's no real state money happening.
No.
I mean, so we're doing 5,000 at White Horse, and they're scrambling for the rest.
Yes.
Yeah.
That
Anything
was
else?
the end- that was the
Okay.
end. Well, other than personal injury, that's all I've got to tell you.
What's that?
Other than personal
Yeah,
injury.
yeah,
that's
well,
all.
we don't need to.
We'll send
other
flowers.
viewers. Yeah, really. Lloyd?
Yes. I'm asking, what is the status of the police record check for the new swim director? I understand that Diane has the paperwork and has submitted it. Okay. I also noticed that Molten Borough started to advertise for lifeguards. Where are we in the hiring process? I don't know who to ask. I did send this to
Gina?
the rec committee.
Yeah,
Okay?
I know that she's got a program
Yeah.
starting on that, but she wanted to get her waterfront director on board.
Yeah.
Right. Police parking issues, is that something for the work session this Friday?
It may be, it could be.
You know, I'd ask that that be, okay. Lakes Region Planning Data Services, there are 4 of them listed here, and one was for traffic counts. and you have a copy of, I put it in correspondence. We've used them before to do Lang Pond Road, and it not only had the count, but it also had the weight of the vehicle. I remember people saying there are 100 tractor trailers going over that road. Well, come to find out that they found what the true figures were. The other thing is, in the correspondence, is highway funding fact sheet. And I made a copy, it's in your correspondence, but I made a copy for the CIP and the Budget Committee. If you go to the back page, it talks about municipal and transportation improvement fund type thing. If you gentlemen would read these things at our next TAC meeting, we are going to discuss which of these things that we lobby for, gas tax, changing a couple of these laws. Please give it some consideration and let me know so I can say Tufton Borough's in favor of this, Tufton Borough's not in favor of that. That's it for now.
Okay. I just have two items. One, I want to go back to the substance abuse. The White Horse had their annual fundraiser on Friday night, and I attended that, and there were over 200 people there, which is, from what they said, maybe twice as many as they had last year. I mean, it was I believe it was a highly successful fundraising event for them, and the presentation that they provided in terms of their vision going forward and growing their program, the numbers of people that are participate as clients for them has been about doubling every year, and the numbers of different things, activities that they have engaged in as ways to get their clients basically re-engaged with society. For instance, this year I know they're putting an agricultural component in, or they're going to be truck farming or whatever it is, but it seems to be working, and it appears to me that there is good support outside of government support in the communities for moving this thing forward. And
well, and there has to be, because one item that I overlooked, but I remember now that you're speaking about it, is the Christian religious basis of some of their treatment, which we can't be involved in.
that's right.
And so they've been trying to work out how they can separate some of this stuff. And that treatment base can be, sponsored by private fundraising and all these other activities, but we can't be a party to that. And a couple of the police departments were concerned about that part of it too. But
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt.
No, at any rate, it was White Horse's story to date, I think, is just amazing. And the things that we hear about, the successes that they're having is terrific. But there's tremendous need there, and I have no doubt that a program that's way larger than what they have today is needed in the area. Getting engaged with these folks and getting them into a situation where not only can they address the substance dependency that's there, but get them into an alternate reality on a path that doesn't include this as part of their life going forward, and so that they can get to someplace other than back into the loop. The other thing I wanted to mention is at the planning board meeting last Thursday, the state gravel tax guru, Mary Pinkham-Langer, was here and spent a little over an hour with the planning board, and almost all of the pit owners, small pit owners in town were here. And she was very helpful in helping us all to understand how we deal with the small pits that missed the grandfathering back in 1991 and continue to operate. And the answer is there is a way to continue to run an existing pit without going through the state alteration of terrain approval process with DES, without filing a new site plan and application process with the planning board as if you were opening a brand new pit. And that way relies on working only within the existing open area of the pit, the area that's already been actively engaged in drawing gravel. Once you increase the size by, I believe it's 2.4 acres beyond the existing open area, then you gotta go to DES and get an alteration of terrain permit, which is a long and costly process. So I think, based on the comments I heard from pit owners that were here, the session we had with her was very helpful, and will enable these small pit operators to continue to do some work in their pits without having to go through the huge expense of going through the state permitting process and the site application process that you would find with a brand new pit.
I've heard her speak, and I found her to be cooperative and user-friendly. There are some responsibilities of landowners, but
She is.
what was your take?
Well, and I went through her class a couple of years ago when we were trying to figure out how we got our town regulations in line with the state law, and she's very good. She knows the law well. She brings, because she deals with all the towns in the state, she brings to the table an understanding of what's working in other towns that we have no appreciation for, and is able to make suggestions of things to look at and consider that I think is very beneficial. And she's very conversant in the law, but I noticed that because the gravel tax section of the RSA is very, very complicated, she always has that book right in front of her, and as she's talking about it, she is turning to the page that has the specific language in that refers to whatever the question is, and so that she can read specifically what's in the law and make sure that we're all on the same page. And she just has a nice way of engaging people. And again, she's a tax collector, but she's a tax collector that for the most part you end up with a smile on your face, you know. And her job is to make sure that taxes are paid in accordance with the law. But she does a great job in a nice way of educating us all as to how things are supposed to work. So,
To a guy who's been in the business.
Yeah, I'm of a mind, and I think I can honestly call myself a conservative, that whatever action needs to be taken should be funded by those that need to have the action taken. And we do that with building permits. Our permit pricing is premised upon a certain cost to do business. And at 2 cents a yard, this is just downloading.
Passing it on to the town.
It's passing the buck down to the town with no tax revenue. We should have, I kind of can see a point in the future where we get into a wrestle with a pit owner about a closure thing, and the town is going to have to hire an engineer or a surveyor, at which point all of the residents of the town are paying for something that should, that person who's gaining the revenue from extracting the material
Right.
should have paid in the form of
And depleting
excavation
the material.
taxes.
Right.
It's just,
But that's one of the reasons that in the permitting process for a pit, there's a provision there that for a surety on the pit closure. And the planning board in approving it can require a bond to assure that when the pit's closed, that the reclamation work, that there's money there to do the reclamation work.
I have a question, and you mentioned it before, the comment. Is it time for, and who do we ask to do this, is to put a case number or a permit number on a permit, and who would develop the checklist? They're not in receivership, this is the owner. Who should we ask in town to do that? Is it fair to ask the planning board to do it, that it's already pretty busy, or?
Well, the planning board has a list of the existing, of all the pits in town. So Leanne has that list, and she may have shared it with you, has she?
I actually
list?
do the excavation, those intent to excavates and have the history of each
Right.
year and everything and check the owners and things.
Is there a checklist you go by?
There is a check, when I first was trained, there's like a checklist, but I
Yeah.
mean, long and short is
Could
make
there be a
sure
pe-
that
could there be a
those are the
piece of
owners and
paper
they
that-
both signed or whatever.
Yeah. Well, and I think as we went back to the one that we signed today, let's make sure on every intent to excavate, that the permit number's on there, or if it's one of these small pits
That's fine.
that we have grandfathered, that we just annotate it that way, so that it closes the loop.
Yeah, no problem, that's fine.
We have one permitted pit in town, which is the one up on the Whitney.
Yeah, that's under the new law.
That's
Yep.
right,
All the
And I have a
others are
copy of the
grandfathered.
permit.
right.
That's fine.
Okay. Let's go to correspondence. We have here a notification from an attorney on some mortgagee's notice of foreclosure sale. And this sale will be by, I presume, public auction on May 25th at 10 a.m. And the property is 57-2-16. And I only mention that in case there are
What's that?
part of our audience that might be interested in bidding on it. 57-2-16. It's on Federal Corner Road. All right, the next item we have here is a request for proposals for auctioneer services. And this was a notice that Karen put together. And this will request submissions by Friday, May 4th. And then we will open the proposals that are meeting on the 7th of May. Everybody's seen this, right?
Yes.
So I think we're good to go on that,
Okay,
Karen. Hopefully we get that in the paper this week.
yep.
Along those lines, do we need to start going through the list between now and May, or do we not need to have that list finalized by the time we select the auctioneer?
well, we have to tell the auctioneer what they have to, I mean, I'm gonna assume you're gonna call and ask, how many pieces do you have?
Right. So we ought to review that between now and then, for sure. Next item is RFP for Town of Tufton Borough to replace entrance doors and panels for the town offices. And we've all seen this.
Yes.
Any
Go for it.
suggestions? And again, this will be for submission of proposals by Friday, May 11th. And then the proposals will be open at our meeting on May 14th. So you go ahead and get this one in the paper as well,
Okay,
correct?
yep.
Lakes Region Planning Commission, Transportation Data Collection Services.
That was
We've
the
already
thing.
talked about it earlier.
It's the last one on page 1.
Yep, it's a good services to have available
Yes, right.
and to take advantage of. The highway funding fact sheet that you mentioned earlier.
Please review that, and we'll talk about it at our next meeting, of what I should recommend.
Yep. All right. Stantec solid waste bill, Clay's already got that
Yes,
one for
yes.
action. Let's see, all right. So I have here a list from the tax collector of potential properties to be deeded on May 8th. And these are properties on which the taxes are 3 years in arrears. There are 21 parcels on here, and if memory serves, most of these owners will be in between now and then to get themselves right inside the three-year point. But she did mention that there are at least one or two that the owners are not were not able to track down.
Did you read those into the record?
So-
Maybe someone on film knows something about it? How do you do it?
No,
Is there no way to do it?
I think that, anybody who is 3 years arrears on their real estate taxes ought to know who you are, and I'm almost certain they've gotten some correspondence from the tax collector on it. But May 8th is tax deeding day. So some of these parcels, I would predict, will be deeded on that date.
I think she has some questions on there for you too.
Hmm?
Does she have a question on there for you too, as selectmen of actions to take? Or is that another one? Excuse me.
Well, I mean, there's some discussion on here, but before they're deeded, I think we want to go through, once she gets them cleaned up a little bit,
Okay.
item by item. Typically, in the past, and as recommended, as I remember by the municipal association, you wouldn't take a property by tax deed that brings an ongoing obligation to the town on, for instance, parcels that are part of a cooperative association that pay a
Yes.
monthly assessment. If the town owns it, then the town is liable for that assessment. So even if the taxes are over 3 years in arrears, for the most part, it doesn't make sense to say, well, I'll take that obligation on, we'll just start paying the dues every month and own the parcel. The regional select board meeting is tomorrow evening at 6:30, and I will be attending over at Molten Borough.
You'll enjoy that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And I have here a report off of WMUR, man charged with sexual assault, has a long criminal history. This was as of April 5th. This is an individual that was staying in, doesn't live,
Yes.
doesn't live here, but was staying here.
Right, nice job by the police department.
Yep, yep, absolutely.
That was in there you pulled out, right?
Yep. And then the solar piece. All right, other correspondence. Jack is working on the new credit cards. This is a notice to the Board of Tax and Land Appeals that was filed by our tax collector, certifying when tax bills were mailed last in 2017. This is a Department of Agriculture roundtable on solid waste.
Yeah,
Thursday,
Clay.
May 17th. Clay's going to that, right? Some Primex courses.
Has there been any contact with Primex about the sexual assault training? Karen? Has there been any contact with Primex about putting that sexual assault course on?
Caleb's been corresponding with them directly.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know they've done it in the past.
I don't know if it was about that topic or not,
Okay.
but, oh, training.
All right. So that,
Was this in correspondence?
uh,
Somehow it was,
oh, I think it was in our folders,
Yeah.
actually.
I
Yeah.
don't know if you're ready to look at that, I just,
Yeah.
was like,
All right.
in the
So
future, but,
you-
okay.
Yeah, you have put together a draft of the last 6 months of the year. I would ask that each of us take a look at that schedule, and if we know that we're gonna have a conflict at this point, it's much easier to move a meeting beforehand.
can I make one comment? We have 3 holidays, so we miss out on that week's meetings, and there's 8 no meeting days. And I'm thinking of budget committee, when we go in September, October, November, December, and have only 2 meetings, that, you know,
We changed that last year.
it makes work, you know.
I think we'll probably change it this year.
I personally would like to say for September through December, we plan on being here every Monday. And if for some reason there's a conflict with one of us, then,
Well, let's chat about it at
Yeah.
another meeting.
Yeah.
that's where I'm
Yep.
coming from.
Yep.
Along the same lines is, and it missed it in my notes, we put money in the budget, I call, about going with a per diem person to work in the front office. Isn't it about time we start moving on that? So first of all, a person can be selected and trained?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Any other business? Any questions?
Sure. You talked about the master plan update. What will LRPC be engaged in doing? What is the work at this point?
They have done for us and are doing for us a number of activities, some of them technical pieces, in preparation of maps, incorporation of current trend zoning concepts as development key considerations for future zoning based upon regional planning. They've done the update on several of the chapters, the basic update, and they've done a review in addition to statistics and some of the other ones.
You're reviewing statistics in some of the chapters.
Yeah. And they will be involved in the public workshops once the draft